Okay, Jean?
Yes, Francesco, I can hear you very well. I just can't see you for now, but I can hear you very loud and clear, and so are all the participants in the room here in Skopje, North Macedonia.
That's perfect. So we start with Italian
Okay.
part, and then I give you the word, and we can start. We move forward for the symposium, okay?
No problem. It's just that we can't see your screen. We can hear you very clearly. It's the screen that it's just saying.
Okay, now?
No, so far. Okay. But we can't see you. We are on Relatoriant, maybe. We are on Relatoriant.
Okay, so we start in Italian, okay?
That's fine, ma ancora non ti vediamo.
Alla dottoressa Raffaella Pannuti, presidente di Fondazione Arte Italia Onlus.
Grazie Francesco e ben arrivati a tutti quanti quelli che sono qui nell'istituto, ai relatori e naturalmente anche a tutte le persone collegate. Welcome to everybody here in Anti Institute. Posso parlare in italiano? Ok, grazie. Allora, siamo qui per la presentazione di un libro in cui la telemedicina nell'assistenza terapeutica e in particolare oncologica, è questo, esatto, ringrazio, a cura di Giovanni Cauto e anche Francesco Belletti. Come Fondazione Arte abbiamo fatto un capitolo riguardante la telemedicina nel contesto della sanitaria territoriale. Io ringrazio in particolare Francesco per averci nelle presentazioni di questi libri e soprattutto nella stesura di questi libri. Sono sempre stati argomenti di particolare interesse. Per quanto riguarda invece la telemedicina, credo che sia un tema molto caro in questo momento, che di fare degli studi, cercare
Grazie Raffaella. Adesso chiamerei, forse deve venire qui Ilaria Di Battista, perché c'è proprio la telecamera dove si riesce a vedere anche. Sì. Abbiamo visto adesso che qui c'è la telecamera, sono 82 persone collegate. No, ti abbiamo sentito bene.
Yes. So just to summarize, so that was Professoressa Raffaella Pannuti, who has...
Yes. Del dottor Paolo Bordon, che è il direttore generale dell'azienda ASL di Bologna e sono molto onorata di essere qui a parlare appunto di telemedicina, in particolare per l'assistenza territoriale. Per noi il termine telemedicina non è qualcosa che rappresenta il futuro, ma rappresenta già il presente e lo rappresenta come ha introdotto la Pannuti, nell'ottica di non solo garantire l'assistenza una migliore assistenza a tutti i pazienti su tutto il territorio, ma in particolare cercando di implementare la relazione con i pazienti. Uno degli ultimi progetti di telemedicina che sono stati presentati riguarda la terapia, il monitoraggio e la regolazione della terapia anticoagulante orale, in particolare i pazienti fragili che vengono raggiunti tempestivamente, diciamo, il cui monitoraggio della terapia anticoagulante orale viene raggiunta tempestivamente grazie alla tecnologia, ma la tecnologia non inficia la relazione con gli infermieri che ogni settimana, alcuni ogni 2 o 3 giorni vanno al domicilio dei pazienti, tanto che proprio l'organizzazione del sistema di telemedicina garantisce e rende ancora più efficace la relazione con il personale sanitario. Questo ci tenevo a sottolinearlo proprio per il focus introdotto giustamente dalla Pannuti. E semplicemente ringrazio tutti coloro che sono al tavolo e in particolare Pegreffi per averci coinvolto in un libro così importante, insomma su un tema così importante, anche perché la telemedicina se vuole essere un presente ha bisogno di una condivisione non solo di competenze ma anche proprio di linguaggi, di conoscenze affinché diventi un patrimonio comune alla portata di tutti.
Grazie Ilaria Di Battista, veramente un lavoro interdisciplinare molto importante che stiamo facendo oggi. Adesso ho veramente l'onore di chiamare qui vicino a me il presidente di Fondazione Caresbo, il dottor Beghelli, che Fondazione Caresbo siamo personalmente tutti molto attaccati a questa fondazione perché ci ha dato la possibilità di fare tantissime belle cose per la nostra Bologna. Dottor Beghelli, se volesse venire qua, così la vedono anche, abbiamo 82 persone collegate dalla Macedonia che ci vedono.
So basically, we're having the interventions of the different funders and the different funders and different authors of the chapters of this book on telemedicine.
Allora, innanzitutto un saluto cordialissimo a tutti coloro che stanno guardando questa iniziativa, che non è la prima e anzi sarà una delle tante che realizza a favore della comunità e non è cosa di poco conto, visto che sono sempre maggiori le necessità, i bisogni, eccetera, e non sempre le istituzioni pubbliche sono in grado praticamente di affrontarle con la dovuta celerità e con l'impegno necessario, a parte il fatto che forse la scusante che hanno è che i problemi ce ne sono talmente tanti e ne escono in continuo, per cui bisogna anche portare un po' di pazienza, eccetera. Però per fortuna Bologna ha questa grandissima realizzazione. È una realizzazione fondamentale. Ho avuto moltissime occasioni anche in passato di vedere l'impegno che mette nelle varie iniziative e la sua assistenza è diventata per moltissime persone, ma soprattutto per la comunità bolognese, una essenzialità, che significa che è indispensabile e sarà bene che le istituzioni se ne rendano conto. Per quanto riguarda la Fondazione Caresbo, che è una delle fondazioni legate al mondo finanziario di Intesa, perché la banca di riferimento è Intesa, noi per la verità le risorse che riceviamo in quanto siamo azionisti di Intesa, le riserviamo maggioritariamente proprio al settore sociale, mentre in passato è stato fatto un discorso invece che riguardava più cultura, eccetera, ma per la verità credo che la cultura possa anche un po' attendere, specialmente in questi tempi, mentre gli ambiti di carattere sociale, tra cui sicuramente si colloca l'impegno di ANT, devono essere i primi ad essere valutati e aiutati con le risorse evidentemente possibili. Per quanto riguarda poi il tema di questa iniziativa, devo dire che è all'attenzione proprio del Consiglio d'amministrazione e dell'organo più importante che abbiamo, che è il collegio di indirizzo, perché questo tipo di questo settore, questo ambito che sta conoscendo tra l'altro da un punto di vista tecnologico delle prospettive molto interessanti e molto avanzate, è, come dicevo, oggetto di attenzione, perché vorremmo realizzare un investimento in questo ambito che possa essere proprio destinato ai malati oncologici e sia intervenire dal punto di vista terapeutico sia per altri aspetti evidentemente che sono collegati. Questo è un punto che riteniamo fondamentale. Non possiamo fermarci a parlare solo di ricerca, dobbiamo fare della ricerca e metterla in opera e consentire a tutti di fruirne. È l'idea fondamentale questa, perché sì, tante volte abbiamo avuto occasione di sentire iniziative, prospettare idee, eccetera, ma quello che invece conta è il progetto e poi va fatto il progetto, non è una cosa che si deve lasciare lì. Devo dire che in questi giorni ho avuto anche occasione di parlare di questo argomento con col governatore della nostra regione, Bonaccini, sì, che è persona, non lo nascondo, molto sensibile e molto vispo, il che non sempre succede quando ci imbarchiamo nel mondo della politica, lo dico senza offesa per nessuno, ma invece lì ho incontrato una persona di grande sensibilità e quindi spero che in parte con l'appoggio della Regione, in parte con la volontà degli organi di fondazione, si possa presto dare a Bologna una notizia particolarmente importante in questo ambito. Dobbiamo a un certo punto impegnarci tutti su questo versante, perché credo che chi ha verificato le necessità non può non essere d'accordo. E quindi trovo proprio tra chi ha fatto e sta facendo e farà il possibile per aiutare questa comunità in questi ambiti che sono particolarmente delicati ma importantissimi. Grazie a tutti e grazie a tutti e buon ascolto della illustrazione che vi verrà fatta.
La ringraziamo Presidente, una visione veramente molto lucida. E adesso chiamerei, è arrivato il professor Botteri per un saluto. Professor Botteri, siamo in collegamento, vedete ci sono, così la vedono nella telecamera, si siede qui, sì, siamo in collegamento, vedete, sono 78 collegamenti.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti.
Buongiorno.
Un po' di imprevisti. Io volevo portarvi innanzitutto il ringraziamento e il saluto Fondazione Carlo Ruzzoli per le Scienze Motorie, professor Sandro Gentile, e quindi unitamente alla Fondazione Cassa di Risparmio intende e ha già fatto e ancora lo farà sempre di più, investire molto in questo settore che è estremamente importante, non soltanto per quanto riguarda la concreta realizzazione della tanto attesa sanità territoriale, ma anche e soprattutto perché si dà una svolta anche ai nostri atenei sulle modalità di didattica, di formazione in questo settore. Ecco, questo è uno dei punti più importanti che secondo me va sottolineato, l'importanza della formazione in questo settore. Noi sappiamo che la sanità territoriale rappresenta una sorta di rete con tanti attori, ognuno deve svolgere la propria parte, ma la deve svolgere in sintonia con tutte le altre, è come se fosse un'orchestra che deve suonare un po' in maniera intonata. E quindi nella sanità territoriale, noi sappiamo, ci mettiamo le case di comunità, l'ospedale di comunità, l'assistenza domiciliare, mettiamo il fascicolo sanitario, mettiamo l'infermiere di comunità, il nostro professor Maietta ci parlerà dell'infermiere di comunità che abbiamo formato faticosamente, perché è stato un anno di rodaggio questo, che però ha avuto degli ottimi risultati e la dimostrazione che stanno copiando il nostro esperimento già da tante altre parti. Quindi sono tanti, e fra questi anche la telemedicina. La telemedicina va inserita in questo circuito, ma per realizzare poi questi obiettivi è necessario avere una formazione adeguata, poter utilizzare questi strumenti nella loro difficoltà, ma anche nella loro concretezza. E abbiamo già visto quali sono le problematiche che riguardano la telemedicina, e non soltanto la telemedicina, prima vi parlavo del fascicolo sanitario elettronico. E la maggiore difficoltà che generalmente si riscontra, ma questo l'abbiamo visto anche con Francesco in tanti convegni che abbiamo fatto fino ad oggi, è quello che dice c'è la privacy che impedisce poi di svolgere. Adesso la telemedicina è uno dei momenti più importanti dove bisogna da un lato salvaguardare la privacy, ma dall'altro cercare di porre le condizioni perché poi i medici, i sanitari, gli infermieri possano dialogare tra di loro avendo poi il materiale, sapendo su che cosa stanno parlando, no? Conoscendo gli esami che sono stati fatti, eccetera. E tanto anch'io lo dicevo, ma molti lo ripetono, c'è la privacy che rappresenta un ostacolo. Ecco, io settimana scorsa ho partecipato a un seminario con il garante della privacy e quando ho fatto presente questa difficoltà mi è stato risposto, e vi dirò che la risposta un po' mi ha fatto pensare, e dice ma non vorrei che questo fosse un alibi, perché anche a noi dicono è colpa vostra, ma noi non c'entriamo per niente, perché noi abbiamo cercato di semplificare al massimo queste procedure. Abbiamo introdotto tutta una serie di nuove regolamentazioni, per cui se c'è qualche difficoltà, soprattutto in ordine a una eventuale difficoltà nel reperimento del consenso della persona interessata, perché il punto nodale è poi quello dell'ottenimento del consenso, no? E allora spesso si dice che il consenso non è facile ottenerlo. Pensate soprattutto quando la persona interessata è già deceduta o la persona interessata è in una condizione che non può dare questo. Ecco. E allora il garante della privacy diceva guardate che spesso è un alibi, vi dicono è colpa della privacy, il problema è che non sanno utilizzare gli strumenti, non sanno inserire le informazioni e allora ci dicono è colpa vostra. Ma guardate che noi stiamo cercando, e l'abbiamo già fatto da quando nel maggio del 2020 il governo ha adottato un decreto legge dove in via eccezionale ha consentito il trasferimento e il passaggio delle informazioni fra le diverse amministrazioni, penso all'amministrazione dell'azienda USL come all'amministrazione dell'università, del comune, chiaramente tutte amministrazioni pubbliche che hanno necessità poi di studiare e quindi valutare tutte le informazioni che derivano da questi strumenti per poter poi realizzare le politiche più opportune. Ecco, noi da allora abbiamo fatto in modo che tutto si potesse svolgere e allora ci ho pensato e dico, ma guardate che forse questi non hanno tutte le colpe, non sono loro le colpe. La colpa, come sempre, è una colpa nostra, è una colpa anche di noi anche docenti, ma delle amministrazioni che non hanno ancora formato un personale che sia in grado di utilizzare questi strumenti. Nelle aziende sanitarie, come anche nelle amministrazioni comunali, come anche nella stessa amministrazione universitaria, ne sappiamo con il professor Maietta le difficoltà che ci sono per superare delle cose minime, diciamo. Ma perché? Perché nessuno sa utilizzare queste tecnologie. Noi parliamo tanto di digitalizzazione della pubblica amministrazione, ma sai, noi siamo ancora in mezzo al mare quando parliamo di digitalizzazione. Noi abbiamo 15 miliardi stanziati nel PNRR per arrivare a questi risultati, ai quali dovremo arrivare entro il giugno del 2026, ma io ho molta preoccupazione che ci si possa arrivare, perché ancora non riusciamo neanche a far dialogare due ospedali vicini fra di loro, come l'ospedale Maggiore e l'ospedale Sant'Orsola. Perché? Perché ancora non hanno insegnato ai dipendenti come utilizzare le loro risorse e poi soprattutto non hanno neanche ancora installato delle piattaforme comuni che consentono poi la trasmissione di questi dati. Quindi c'è molto da lavorare da questo punto di vista e non diamo sempre le colpe al garante della privacy, perché la privacy sì, rappresenta un ostacolo perché è anche giusto che poi il soggetto sia tutelato da questo punto di vista e sappiamo quello che sta accadendo anche in queste ultime elezioni, le accuse che si fanno da una parte e dall'altra sulla conoscenza dei dati, degli interventi anche da parte straniere e altro. Ma non è solo la privacy, è l'utilizzazione dei dati, saper utilizzare i dati e se noi quindi non insistiamo sulla formazione del personale, di quel personale che deve poi consentire la realizzazione di questi obiettivi, noi è inutile che andiamo a scrivere dei libri sulla telemedicina o sul fascicolo sanitario elettronico, perché saranno degli strumenti riservati a pochi che non saranno però in grado di far suonare quell'orchestra in maniera intonata come tutti noi vorremmo. Grazie, scusate la prolissità.
Grazie professor Botteri, sempre una visione molto lucida e proprio sulla formazione che continuerei per altri due saluti, chiamerei il professor Maietta, professore dell'Alma Mater,
si vedono,
sì, ti vedono qui seduto, sì, meglio qui seduto, coordinatore del corso di laurea stampa della Facoltà di Scienze Motorie.
Grazie, mi unisco ai ringraziamenti appunto del professor Botteri per quanto riguarda le fondazioni che hanno contribuito appunto a strutturare questo volume, ma soprattutto vorrei complimentarmi per la cura del volume, vorrei complimentarmi con il dottor Pegreffi e con il dottor Paruto per aver appunto inserito in questo volume argomenti importantissimi e innovativi, come diceva anche il professor Botteri, su quello che è l'ambito proprio della telemedicina. Allora io mi occupo prevalentemente, anzi esclusivamente di quello che è la ricerca nell'ambito dell'attività motoria adattata e non solo, anche l'attività come mezzo di prevenzione. E quindi il coinvolgimento ha riguardato soprattutto questo aspetto per quello che è stato il mio contributo. Allora, noi sappiamo benissimo come l'esercizio è un fattore di prevenzione, un esercizio fisico costante, regolare, e oltre a essere un fattore di prevenzione sappiamo come oggi sono tantissime le evidenze che appunto affermano e confermano l'importanza che ha l'attività motoria adattata anche in quello che è un percorso legato alla terapia e un percorso anche post terapia. Eppure in quello che si evidenzia appunto nell'articolo che diciamo ho scritto insieme ad altri, eppure ecco 4 pazienti oncologici su 10 purtroppo sono sedentari. Le ultime diciamo così evidenze pubblicate anche in uno studio del Regno Unito affermano che il 52% dei pazienti oncologici non seguono delle indicazioni ben precise oppure le seguono a livello generale. Di questo 52% il 30% vengono date delle indicazioni così un pochettino generali sull'importanza dell'attività fisica, il 14% ad esempio non viene inviato a professionisti che possono in qualche modo seguire nello specifico questi pazienti o queste persone. Ecco, io vorrei appunto fare riferimento a questo aspetto perché purtroppo è una realtà che viviamo anche in Italia. In Italia, ad esempio, abbiamo professionisti che si occupano di somministrare, si occupano di approfondire argomenti come quella dell'attività motoria adattata. Questi professionisti appunto sono i laureati magistrali in scienze tecniche dell'attività motoria che insieme a professionisti sanitari potrebbero veramente portare a dei buoni livelli, diciamo quello che oggi l'evidenza scientifica conferma, cioè cercare in qualche modo di aiutare nella fase preventiva ma anche nella fase diciamo post-terapeutica queste persone a vivere uno stile di vita diciamo attivo e sano. Quindi come dicevo prima sappiamo benissimo quanta importanza ha, cioè, soprattutto anche da un punto di vista non solo fisico ma anche psichico. Quindi ecco, io vorrei proprio approfittare di questo momento per divulgare l'importanza appunto del professionista che comunque nella sua preparazione magistrale ha la possibilità di approfondire, di formarsi proprio nella somministrazione di un'attività motoria adattata. E insieme a questo professionista, come diceva prima il professor Botteri, abbiamo anche la presenza ora, grazie a questo master innovativo, di poter collaborare insieme a una categoria importante a livello sanitario come gli infermieri di comunità. Ecco, devo dire che è stata un'esperienza bellissima questo primo master. Eravamo partiti un pochettino con qualche titubanza, no? Ma chissà. E invece devo dire che tutti i corsisti hanno veramente recepito l'importanza che ha l'esercizio fisico, l'importanza che può avere un'attività motoria verso persone fragili. Bene, non voglio dilungarmi tantissimo, io vi ringrazio, ancora complimenti per il volume.
Grazie professor Maietta, e l'elemento che diciamo va a completare questo puzzle interdisciplinare è proprio il ruolo anche delle fondazioni, quindi chiamerei il professor Giovanni Paruto per salutare a nome della Fondazione Carlo Rizzoli per le Scienze Motorie che gioca un ruolo direi molto importante in questo contesto.
Buonasera a tutti, un ringraziamento all'ANT perché collabora con noi sempre in questi ambiti, mentre stiamo lavorando su temi particolari come quello dello stile di vita e come questo della telemedicina. Io parto da una considerazione che nessuno strumento può essere più utile e necessario della relazione che esiste tra medico e paziente. Ebbene, la tecnologia, attraverso la telemedicina, ha fatto dei progressi da gigante in questi ultimi anni, tant'è che c'è stata ed è in atto una riprogettazione di quello che è il rapporto salute e comunità, così come è da ripensare a quello che è il rapporto proprio tra settori, tra medico e paziente, tra medico e caregiver. I caregiver vanno, come diceva il professor Bottari, vanno formati assolutamente. E poi sulla telemedicina si inizia a parlare di tanti benefici, quali quelli della riduzione dei costi, quello di arrivare in luoghi dove sarebbe dispendioso il tempo e la possibilità da parte dei medici, degli specialisti e da parte dei pazienti rispetto alla città, cioè la possibilità di arrivare nei luoghi collinari, un po' dove non esistono degli ospedali. Perché dico questo? Perché il ruolo della telemedicina non è solo quello della televisita, ma è anche quella della telecooperazione, ad esempio, tra medici. Quando ci sono dei problemi di salute dell'ammalato e fanno una riunione online senza la presenza dell'ammalato, oppure di una telecooperazione in un momento particolare di un sanitario, come si chiama? Un operatore sanitario che ha bisogno di consultare il medico in un determinato momento, e poi per non parlare infine del telemonitoraggio, che è proprio quello indispensabile per cui è nata la telemedicina, cioè per i pazienti oncologici praticamente, in cui attraverso un device si riescono ad immettere dei dati che riguardano appunto la glicemia, il peso corporeo, la pressione, la saturazione. Tutto questo può avvenire però sempre, come diceva il mio maestro, il professor Botter, attraverso la formazione, perché qualcuno deve immettere questi dati all'interno dei device. E il problema è questo. Ci sono i caregiver che vanno formati e ci sono gli stessi operatori che vanno formati. Ecco, quindi la formazione innanzitutto mentre la telemedicina avanza. Questa è la mia idea. Grazie.
Bene, prima di dare la parola ai nostri amici che sono in attesa e alla professoressa Caleia, l'ultimo saluto molto rapido del dottor Zambelli, avvocato Zambelli, che farà un saluto diretto poi anche a ripercorrere un po' la tematica dell'importanza dei dati, un saluto molto rapido, e poi passiamo nella parte, diciamo, straniera, diciamo, internazionale, dove poi si giungerà qui anche la dottoressa Varani e iniziamo le comunicazioni.
Sì, grazie Francesco. Allora, sarò molto rapido anche nei saluti, ringraziando te e il professor Palluto per l'opportunità di partecipare a questa tavola rotonda, che sicuramente vede una sfida per chi si occupa di diritto non da poco, nel senso che cercare di inserirsi in un dibattito scientifico con le peculiarità che ci sono dal punto di vista delle altre discipline, soprattutto quelle sanitarie, quelle motorie, e far coniugare il nostro sapere non è stata una cosa semplice. Ma su questo ovviamente voglio riprendere il punto delle sfide che ha citato il professor Botteri, o anche delle problematiche che ha sollevato, soprattutto relative all'inquadramento e alle conoscenze relative alle procedure sulla privacy. nel senso che ancora oggi quando si parla di telemedicina molto spesso andiamo a focalizzarci dal punto di vista giuridico ma anche proprio operativo sull'aspetto tecnologico della telemedicina, quindi su quelle che sono le procedure, operativamente come bisogna fare, ma per poterli insegnare dobbiamo far capire anche, tornando al discorso prima della formazione, quanto sia rilevante che gli operatori e le persone coinvolte riescano ad entrare in questo processo. E allora da giurista ho pensato come possiamo dare una mano, un contributo in questo senso? Concentrandoci sul discorso che la telemedicina si occupa della salute del paziente, sempre una banalità, un'ovvietà, però la salute del paziente è descritta come è descritta nella Costituzione, quindi come una cura e una relazione con il malato che non va soltanto al momento non si focalizza solamente nel momento della somministrazione della terapia, ma coinvolge il paziente, il malato e tutte le persone che sono lì vicino dal momento in cui questo entra in contatto con la struttura sanitaria, che sia essa fisica o digitale, vedendola in una prospettiva futura. E allora in questo momento anche la raccolta dei dati, quindi il momento iniziale, non può essere pensato solamente come una procedura o un foglio da compilare, soprattutto per patologie così rilevanti come quelle oncologiche, dove il malato nel momento in cui si approccia con la struttura sanitaria, il personale sanitario sta raccontando la sua esperienza con la malattia. E quindi concentrare tutta l'attenzione solamente sui formulari e sulle procedure da superare, a mio avviso, non è corretto. Anzi, il personale sanitario, quindi gli infermieri, i medici, tutte le persone che entrano in contatto con il malato devono sapere come tradurre questi dati. Qui riprendo il punto del professor Botteri, quindi educare e formare le persone che sono attorno al malato, compresi i caregiver, alle potenzialità che la traduzione corretta dei dati della malattia ha per supportare il malato. Questo secondo me è un punto fondamentale che anche le linee guida sulla telemedicina, ormai del 2014, però vanno a riprendere, perché viene posto l'accento su una dinamica relazionale del malato, quindi sulla sua struttura anche fuori dall'ospedale, immagino con la farmacia dove vengono presi farmaci, con l'infermiere di comunità, appunto, che non può essere escluso dalla somministrazione della terapia e tantomeno dalla conoscenza dei dati della malattia del paziente. Quindi, per concludere molto brevemente, dal punto di vista giuridico cosa possiamo fare? Come diceva il professor Botteri, le procedure in realtà sono molto snelle. Lo stesso regolamento europeo sulla privacy dice agli operatori che trattano i dati che devono loro stessi pensare a quello che è il modello migliore per la raccolta, la conservazione e il trattamento dei dati. Quindi vedere la privacy nella telemedicina come un ostacolo alla cura del paziente, perché magari il medico oncologo si trova un formulario in più da riempire, l'infermiere si trova nella stessa situazione, ecco, credo che limiti molto quelle che sono le potenzialità di uno strumento che invece chi mi ha preceduto ha descritto quanto è importante per lo sviluppo dell'assistenza ai malati. Grazie.
Bene, grazie Avvocato Zambelli. Adesso chiamerei Silvia Varani perché diamo la parola a Malta alla professoressa Gynocare Skopje dell'Università di Malta. Jean, can you hear us?
Yes, grazie molto Francesco. So I'm going to convert in English. So I am Gynocare Skopje, so saluti a tutti all'ANT, all'Università di Bologna. I am actually now in Skopje. I'm now actually in Skopje, North Macedonia. You can hear me okay, Francesco? Mi senti bene? Sì. Allora saluti a tutti gli amici all'ANT, vedo Silvia, professor Botteri, Guido, saluti. So yes, I am from the University of Malta. However, I am at the moment in Skopje, the beautiful city of Skopje in North Macedonia, because your symposium has coincided with our training school of the Gynocare Skopje. So I am happy to give the start to this symposium. We're very honored to be connected with you in Bologna, okay, with ANT and the University of Bologna. So I have a few slides to start off this satellite symposium. which is detailing the importance of creating a European platform for gynecological rare cancer research. Okay, so we're going to be sharing some slides in a minute. Yeah, and just to let you know, this training school is part of 3 days. We started actually yesterday, today is the second day, and it finishes tomorrow. And the reason why we chose these dates, because tomorrow is World Gynae Oncology Day. So basically the international day to commemorate, to think and reach out and increase awareness on gynecological cancers. So our cross-section. So it actually is dealing with gynecological rare cancers. So already cancer is a big problem, and I know that ANT are very much involved in helping patients with all forms of cancer. Gynecological cancer is a field on its own, and when it comes to rare, it's even more difficult for the patient, for the caregiver. So just going to define, like, what do I mean by rare? So what is rare? So the definition that is used and that our group, our network uses is rare is when a condition, in this case rare gynae cancer, has an annual incidence of 6 or fewer per 100,000. That is the definition of Rare Care Net, and that is by far like the standard definition which both in clinical practice and in academia we stick to. However, when you take rare gynae cancers, although each individual cancer will be rare in a particular population, they are still common. Why? Because, as we're explaining in a press conference this morning done with the media here in North Macedonia, in total, there are about 18.5 million women annually affected by some form or other of gynecological cancer. 50% of these, so 9 million, have a cancer which is classified as rare. And just to give a brief overview, I know it's a bit of a busy slide, but these there are approximately 40 more or less rare cancers which affect the ovary or the fallopian tube or the body of the uterus or the cervix or the valve or the vagina or other sites like, for example, the trophoblastic disease. And these, if you put them all together, they contribute to 9 million women being affected with these every year in different parts of the world. So what is the big deal? What is the importance when we are dealing with rare conditions, especially rare cancers? So as we heard over this, the course of this training school, when a condition is rare, the symptoms that patients present with can be confusing. You can confuse them with other common things or maybe other benign things, and it takes time before you realize that that condition is a serious rare tumor. Because even in busy hospitals, there is usually actually clinical inexperience. Why? Because even in the busiest of hospital, you might get 1 or 2 cases a year. And, each individual doctor maybe in a lifetime might come, across a handful of cases which are considered as rare. Because of this, the patient who unfortunately has that rare condition ends up being diagnosed late. Because they're diagnosed late, there is a delay in giving the treatment, and even if the treatment is in time, there might not be the right treatment for it, either because it's not available or because we don't know, there isn't enough evidence on what the right treatment is. So you might try to discuss with the pathologist and with the multidisciplinary team, and you try to find something which is similar to that condition but not that condition, and try to translate that same treatment. Also, depending on where you happen to live, you might have poor access to care, because very often, rightly so, rare conditions tend to be centralized, especially in the more higher income countries. But if you happen not to live in that particular city or in that country, you don't have a tertiary center which deals with that particular condition, then that's going to lead to health inequalities. And of course, all this then leads to a poorer prognosis. So unfortunately, the patient with a rare gynecological cancer, like any other patient with rare conditions, their outcome tends to be much worse than in the case where people have more common conditions. So what are the challenges? Of course, the challenges particular to rare gynecological cancer is to have a proper pathological diagnosis. Why? Because to have a proper pathological diagnosis, you need experience, you need to be very familiar with what is normal and what is common and what is not common, and you need to have the experience. And as I said, I mean, if you only get in your lifetime to see 1 or 2 cases, you might miss that particular case which happens to be handed to you on that particular day. In order to try to be informed more about these rare gynecological cancers, like other rare conditions, there is the move to biobanking, right? But again, although there are biobanks, and there are many biobanks all over the world for cancer, you need to know what you're banking. So if you, let's say, bank a sample of an ovarian tumor, but you don't have the proper diagnosis of what you bank, and then you use those samples, which you think are okay, of ovarian cancer, and use them in your experiments, if they're a mixed bag of different histological types and different tumor types, the results that you get by using the samples in your biobank are not going to really reflect what really needs to happen. Of course, to get access to proper samples which are properly diagnosed and properly stored, you need legal and ethical issues, including informed consent of patients who, of course, already have been a bit unfortunate to have this rare condition with all the challenges I mentioned before. Of course, when something is rare, pharmaceutical companies are not that interested to invest in carrying out proper clinical trials or in promoting a drug which is specific or selling the drug in a country where they only get 1 or 2 cases in a year. So, of course, prices go up if such a drug is available. And of course, then clinical trials make it more difficult because you have less samples, they take long, maybe they can run into a number of years, and again there is the risk that in the clinical trials you include people who have mixed conditions, so you're not really targeting a particular condition. So, to overcome these challenges, for pathological diagnosis, you need more basic research and more training of pathologists and of all the multidisciplinary team. For biobanking, you need to involve clinicians, but even you need to include patients and patient advocacy groups. For legal and ethical issues, you need to involve experts who are experts in law, experts in data protection, in GDPR, experts in ethics. In order to bridge the gap with pharma, of course, you need more experts and more patient advocacy groups to address the need. And for clinical trials, especially for rare cancers and like other rare conditions, you need international collaboration and multiple centers in order to gather the correct information in a shorter time. So how do we overcome these challenges? So that is where Gynocare comes in. So Gynocare is a cost action. So for those of you not familiar with cost action, it's a collaboration in science and technology. It is an instrument which is funded by the European Union, where it targets a particular topic, in this case, rare gynecological cancers, and it funds international collaboration. So our group, which is basically meant to lead to a European network interested in research in rare gynecological cancers, and ultimately not just research, but leading to future cure. It's made up of this international collaboration with currently more than 170 members from over 30 countries, not just in Europe, but even beyond. So we've got the near neighboring countries, and even further as far as the USA, Tanzania, we've got even Mauritania. So the collaboration is getting bigger. In order to address this, I mean, the work is kind of divided into 5 groups. So what we call working groups. So you've got the working group, which is interested, focusing on the basic research, the working group focusing on biobanking, the working group focusing on the legal aspect, and of course, the working groups on collaboration with pharma and clinical trials. Each working group has their own expert as a lead, okay, and all the leads, including the people, the participants within those working groups, they work together not just in silos, but they act, as one whole action. And basically, for those interested to know more, the ethos is capacity building, and collaborating and learning from experts, but involving various disciplines. So you have the scientists, you have the clinicians, you have but also the industrial partners, policymakers, and patient organizations across Europe and beyond. And the idea is to provide equal networking opportunities from early stage researchers and young professionals, and to meet experts within the country, within the other countries, and like what we're doing here in this training school, to learn from each other and further disseminate this knowledge. So thank you very much for your attention, and now I give the floor to you, Francesco, to introduce your next speaker.
Yes, Silvia Varani.
Thank you.
Yes, if you don't mind, I introduce Silvia Varani, okay?
Yes, thank you very much.
So I have the pleasure to introduce Silvia Varani. She is the scientific coordinator of AND Foundation. So please, Silvia, go ahead.
So I think at this point, you just need to share you just press on the share button. It's at the bottom of the link. Yes. So I can see it on my PC. We just need to, yes, we can see it on the main as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we can hear you.
Professoressa Candelia Agius per this interesting, very interesting contribute. And thank you to Francesco Pegreffi, Dr. Francesco Pegreffi, Francesco, for us, a big friend of ANT. It's a pleasure for us to share this event and this and our foundation, but our project. And it's a pleasure for me to share with you the ANT presentation. Okay, ANT Foundation is one of the largest European organizations in the field of home supportive and palliative care for cancer patients and their families. Since 1978, we helped over 150,000 patients. ANT does not assist only cancer patients at advanced stage, but also provides adequate support to their caregivers since the early stage of the disease. ANT action is founded on solid ethical assumptions. The concept of euthanasia, that means the dignity of life until the last breath. ANT health professionals' communication ability with patients and families adds value that often the public health is not able to guarantee. Volunteer staff, about 2,000 people, adequately trained, is assisting the pool of professionals to provide a global social health service to patients and their families. ANT a non-profit organization and assists almost 3,000 patients every day in 29 Italian cities and 11 regions. The ANT assistance provides for 24-hour medical care, medical support, psychological support, social assistance, spiritual assistance, home nutritional service team, peak service, physiotherapy, basic care, direct supply of drugs and medical aids, free transport from home to hospital, and also washing, ironing and delivery of shit for people with disadvantaged socioeconomical conditions. The ANT home care staff is composed of 108 physicians, 93 nurses, 37 psychologists, and 14 healthcare professionals. The ANT home care professionals go directly to the patient's home. Our service with emotional approach, and also offer at home a tailored care. And offer at home effective and tailored care being surrounded by family and love. The home care assistance provided is free of charge for all patients. We assisted in 2021 every day about 2,900 patients, and in the entire year we assisted 8,900 patients. The 80% of our patients decided at home, and this is an important indicator for good palliative care. About 3 out of 4 patients who get on ANT home care have already stopped cancer therapies, and they are in palliative care. The 20% are doing therapy for advanced cancer, and only 6.5 are in adjuvant or neoadjuvant therapy. ANT pays great attention to support for caregivers. During 2021, ANT assisted about 2,600 caregivers. We also have an hour caregiving manual that we can provide caregivers e-book or paper copy. We organize several trainings, psychological education, and practical courses. We deliver courses for healthcare professionals, credited for the National Health Care System, and carry out internship for physicians, nurses, and psychologists. ANT is committed to research projects aiming at improving its own home health assistance. Scientific research is focused on different areas of palliative care: management of symptoms, psycho-oncology, end of life, assessment and evaluation of care model, digital technology applied to support palliative care, and in our recent project. These are some recent publication, our publication. ANT is involved in some international European network, as European Cancer Patient Coalition, International Association for Hospice and Palliative Care, and this is an European group for partnership on active and healthy aging. And is also involving in some Erasmus Plus project. These are running out, are 3 European projects expired in this month. months. And this is the last project, ELPIS, a project about e-learning on palliative care for international students. And finally, we are proud to have won the Volunteer Award 2021 of the Italian Senate for the category Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. Very clear.
So I don't know if you could hear the clapping from our side. It was really, really interesting, Professor Savarani, very interesting. I'm not sure if you heard the clapping, c'era l'applauso. Anyway, so now I'm very happy to introduce from our side Professor Grigor Tofosky. Professor Grigor Tofosky, he is the president of the Macedonian Association of Gynecologists and Obstetricians here in Skopje and North Macedonia. He's also heading the organizing committee of this training school as part of the local committee. So the floor to you, Professor Tofosky.
Dear colleagues, here and anywhere in the world, because we have our colleagues, and I'm greeting all our colleagues and friends in Bologna, but also we have this online part of our training course in pathology in Skopje, North Macedonia, who are online from many countries all around the world as well. It's my pleasure to be here. It's my pleasure to be part of the Gynocare project. It's my pleasure to know Jean Kalea as our friend, as a coordinator of the whole project. And I think that it's very important that the focus here and on my presentation will be made on the point of international. So we can talk about all of this in perspectives, in rare gynecological cancer, but the point is that we have to go international and we have to collaborate to get to the better results. Probably we all know that the story has changed in the last years, in the last century, that after infectious diseases we are closely but surely going to the period where the cancer will be enemy number one, and that's why we start working on it. It is nowadays the leading cause of premature death in many of the developed countries, and probably it will become in many of the developing countries as well, when they manage to eradicate their infectious diseases causes. Therefore, the cancer research is of the utmost importance in the contemporary medicine. And we need research and extensive knowledge about the biological processes, about the cancer onset, which we knew something before, but we are learning something more through the extensive research, about the growth and metastasis of the cancer. These discoveries will lead to more effective and targeted treatments and prevention strategies. As you can see on this map, actually, the cancer with this white, blue color where the cancer is the first or the second place after cardiovascular diseases, and in the orange is where the cancer is in the top 3. And you can see there's only some few states in Africa where the among leading 3 causes is not cancer. So cancer is everywhere. As we mentioned in the press conference, in promotion of the tomorrow's day, the 20th of September, as a gynecological oncology day, Go Day. And in that day, we would like to address and to promote the importance of preventing the cancers and promoting the good therapies and good care. And of course, as Sylvia mentioned, good palliative care for all those in need. Actually, that's also a very important part. We know that prevention is the best point, early discovery is the second one, good therapies, which we aim for, are actually also very important, but sometimes very expensive, and palliative care is the one which is very, very important for the patients in need. In carrying these efforts among the European nations, but also as mentioned in some other nations as well, there are some logistical difficulties in carrying out the clinical trials because of the small patient population. There is hesitation of the pharmaceutical industry, which actually earns a lot producing these expensive drugs. And there is a complexity in creating adequate information for the development of cost-effective drugs. And I would mention one thing more at the later slides, and that's also involvement of the patient groups, actually, because we need to include also the patients. As mentioned by Jean before, we have the new classification, and actually the group of the rare tumors is becoming even larger as this immunohistochemistry and molecular classification actually subdivides the groups that we knew of cancers, of gynecological cancers before. And sometimes it's very difficult to explain to the press actually that if you have more than 50% of the cancers in the gynecological cancer, which are rare gynecological cancer, how they can be rare. They can be rare because there are a lot of subtypes, but that's the most important because of the subtypes, the therapy can be different and can be very important to choose the right therapy. Some examples of the rare gynecological cancers include, but they are not limited to the table you're seeing at your screens now. And we had very interesting presentation during this day and during yesterday for eminent experts about some of those very rare gynecological cancers during this 3-day workshop, training school about the pathology of rare gynecological cancers. And since you were not present and we are just conjoining for this symposia, in the future weeks we will put all the lectures on the website of Gynocare and Macedonian Association of Gynecologists and Obstetricians website. So what is very important? Correct pathological diagnosis, as mentioned in previous lecture, and it's up to the rarity of the condition, to the specialist subjectivity, limited experience because they are very rare. They sometimes tend to have a complex histotypic appearance, and sometimes, as Jean mentioned, the submission of inadequate tumor sample. So that's why it's very important to build these pathological schools to make telemedicine work, as you promote in your book, because telemedicine and new novelties in medicine and novelty in computer science and artificial intelligence actually are the ways to overcome these difficulties. We had beautiful presentation from professor from Ireland actually that there is a way to digitalize and actually to use machine intelligence and artificial intelligence to provide a real and fast contact with perfect slides for pathologists to cooperate. So as mentioned before, immunohistochemistry and molecular studies actually are the ones which subdivide those types of neoplasms of rare gynecological tumors, and sometimes we have been shown during these days here and previously that some mutations actually, the wild mutations and sporadic mutations and genetic association, for example for PARP and the breast carcinoma and ovarian carcinoma, it's better to use PARP sometimes instead of using it in sporadic cases. We had even the newest articles about the sex germ cell ovarian tumor that actually sometimes not giving the therapy, actually, not giving the chemotherapy produces better results than giving the chemotherapy. So that's a field for research and we have all to concentrate here. We as clinicians have to help actually research to find the right way where to address all these problems. And of course, in all this analysis, you can see that there is different subtypes and different KRAS or BRAF mutations in some of the carcinomas. That's why we're targeting to the next level. What is the next level? It's individualized and targeted medicine, actually. So by studying the molecular basis of these carcinomas, we should develop new diagnostic, prognostic, and treatment strategies, and molecular and genetic discovery of new targets and development of targeted agents actually will include monoclonal antibodies, as we have some so far, small molecules, and checkpoint inhibitors. While chemotherapy inhibits the DNA replication and mitosis, these agents actually target cancer signaling pathways, stroma, immune microenvironment, and vasculature in tumor tissues. So drugs targeting defective DNA repair, such as PARP inhibitors, are already some of them approved for advanced ovarian cancer. Drugs which are targeting angiogenesis also have been used several years in treatment of advanced or recurrent ovarian and cervical cancers. And immune checkpoint inhibitors like anti-PD-1 and PD-L1 antibodies have been proved successful for mismatch repair deficient endometrial cancers and in the newest time and for HPV targeted therapies which are under development. What are microRNAs? So probably some of you who work in this field, you already know this, but still it's a class of non-coding RNAs that are approximately 20 to 20 nucleotides in length. They're involved in the regulation of gene expression. They are potential non-invasive molecular markers for cancer diagnosis and therapeutic response because they are easily extracted from tissues and from blood. The expression is different. Sometimes they may function as a suppressor or sometimes as an oncogen, depends on the circumstances. Their function in tumor regenesis could be due to rare regulation of few processes in the cell. And their expression signatures can be associated with tumor type, tumor grade, clinical outcomes. And there are some potential candidates already available for the future therapeutic and diagnostic research. So we have to identify those and find their way how to use them in cancer prognosis, diagnosis, and treatment. As we all know, the care for patients with rare gynecological cancers actually differs fundamentally and significantly compared to the care for a patient with a more common cancer. This is why, because there's a small population size, there are no controlled randomized trials, and sometimes it's very difficult, as we heard from Professor Eduardo, that it's a case in some cases, and the treatment is developed based on expert opinion in some cases, but now slowly but surely there is an internationalization of the process, and we will talk about that later. And we have to use anyway the scientific evidence, the international consensus guidelines, multidisciplinary approach, and high-quality clinical trials, which we still lack. What are the challenges in making this thing international? So first one is organizational. So you should bring together researchers from many countries. You should achieve consensus and overcome many regulatory and financial barriers which can impede the smooth running of international clinical research. So that's the organizational part. But beside that, there is a methodological part. Even with this collaboration, standard trial design may require unfeasibly large recruitment targets for the setting, which calls for innovative methodologies to research. And these novel trial designs can be of different sizes, so no one-size-fits-all solution is available. So we should make some collaborative scientific research, and probably one of the ways to develop these biobanks which will be dedicated to rare gynecological cancers. Those biological specimens can show us much more, and we can use them in much more conditions, in the same time being ethically and legally obliged to inform the patients so for what purposes those molecular and those biological samples will be used. And that's also part of one of the working groups in Gynocare. So international comparisons are also very valuable, but we have to find the ways how to take the samples and in the future compare the samples like an evidence base. When people actually, and when the science completed the Human Genome Project, it was a new era of promise for medicine, and sequencing the entire human genome was an enormous scientific triumph. It laid the groundwork for analyzing disorders, not cancer, but others, that result from dynamic interplay between genetic and environmental factors. Yet translation into clinical benefit is not yet fully at hand. And you can see here how the progress was made, and it's made in the last 30 years actually, and it's going fast forward. And we don't know the end point of this. Recognizing the power of a population-based approach to search for complex diseases and susceptibility genes and the large number of samples required for these studies, population-based biobanks have been established. And they should be carefully regulated and carefully funded and under control of the medical profession, let's say, not just only on the pharmaceutical sectors. So this was enable the procurement of significant numbers of rare cancers by combining samples from different banks. So they should all unite, and we should have a bank where we could analyze some of these very rare gynecological cancers, and that will facilitate the future research into biomarkers and molecular markers. And they can be then used in a diagnostic setting as well as in a predictive or prognostic sense. And it's very important that the focus should be on diagnosis, not only on therapy. So biobanks have laid the foundation of three rapidly expanding domains of biomedical science, and that's molecular and genetic epidemiology, that's molecular pathology, and pharmacogenomics and pharmacoproteomics. So they are all aimed at different parts, very important, of the process of biobanking. And the networking of biobanks should take place, so there should be a multi-directional flow of information, expertise, material, like we the doctors now are exchanging our knowledge and our information and our cases, and the biobanks should do the same in order to provide a good field and a lot of samples to have statistically significant analysis of the tumors and of their specific parts. So it requires that also we have adoption of common technical standards and also implementation of legislatives in different countries. But we shouldn't never forget the 4 ethical principles which are guiding biomedical research. And that's respect for autonomy, non-maleficence, so to do no harm, beneficence, to do our best, and justice. And appropriate methods to obtain informed consent from the potential participants. The institutions and investigators that develop and manage biobanks, they have a responsibility to protect personal data, which in these electronic times it's very difficult to do. We have hackers all the time and so on, so it's very sensible information. We have to ensure that it's biological and environmentally safe. So the spreading of the disease and potential diseases is also a very important part of this process. And to make this collection accessible and available for reuse if some kind of new researches emerge, so under defined conditions. So nobody can experiment with anybody's samples, biological samples, in case they are not agreed upon to. That's very important. And one thing which is very important, that of course ethics can be a top priority, and that's because theoretically each one of us may become part of this group of cancers. Of gynecological, only women, but of the other cancers, yes, all of us. So what are the future considerations? It's very important that international organization or projects like this one, the policymakers, medical workers, patients, should all be involved in the processing for rare cancers to get more scientific consideration and financial support. So that's of the utmost importance. Then there is the second process, the coordination of clinical trials, We should see what trials exist to coordinate in order for not to be repeated unnecessary and to be guided in the right direction in the cancer research. Also, what is especially important, and I think in part maybe we are lacking that part, that we have to involve the pharmaceutical industry in the process in order to develop cost-effective new diagnostic modalities and treatments. Because we have heard that 1 gram of some new therapy drug for cancer sometimes costs like many kilograms of gold. 1 gram is very, very expensive. And it doesn't always give so much months like a prognosis and in lifespan of our patients. And also what is very important, and I'm also addressing you who are listening anywhere in the world, in Bologna, that tomorrow actually is the day of gynecological oncology, and that we have to raise awareness of this rare gynecological cancer and involve as many people as we can and actively sharing all this information we are talking about today, but the information we knew and we will know in a future period of time. So what would be like kind of conclusions of this presentation? That it's a challenge to investigate and treat rare gynecological cancers, and we actually explained that before, that diagnostic accuracy is coupled with appropriate treatment policies, that we improve not only survival, but very important, the quality of life. And in the meantime, to maintain the healthcare expenditures at a reasonable level. And complex care of patients with rare gynecological cancer needs multidisciplinary approach. So as much as possible, we should consult the tumor boards, the experts in rare gynecological cancers, the projects, the telemedicine, and so on. One of the positive examples about all this is the project Gynocare, funded by ECOST, because we actually understood that international collaboration and international comparison is of extreme importance, and that we should all join together to work as a team. And this quality international research and collaboration is actually should in this way probably obtaining good samples and good coordination and good connection between patients, doctors, pharmaceutical industry, and policymakers actually, which lead to further and faster finding of diagnostic and improving of the therapy of those group of patients. And just to give you an overview of our group here of trainers and some trainees as well, and the good atmosphere we have here at the medical faculty in Skopje, the University St. Cyril and Methodius, and also outside in the making some social activities in the city of Skopje. So it was my pleasure giving this presentation. I hope it was not too long, and I hope I was very clear so everybody can understand what is the point of our work here and of our future work.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Professor Grigor Tofosky. It was very nice presentation. And now it's my pleasure to invite Professor Francesco Pegreffi. So I've known Professor Pegreffi for a long time. I mean, he has been the brain behind organizing this important satellite symposium between North Macedonia and Bologna. And he's going to speak to us about human movement and oncological patients, especially particularly sarcopenia, joint degenerative disease, and bone health. So over to you, Francesco.
Thank you, Professor Callega. Thank you, Gina. Yes, we are friends, we are colleagues, and I have to really express my deepest appreciation for having given us the great opportunity to exchange experiences, international experiences that are really useful, especially speaking about oncologic patients. I want to move the lens on sarcopenia because in the context of the management of the elderly patient with cancer, yes, sarcopenia represents a key topic that we have to investigate. So we know that in such this patient, another factor that is a factor that we can change is aging. So now it's very important to differentiate between sarcopenia and aging. So we know that sarcopenia is a loss of muscle mass related to a process that could be normal, biological, such as aging, or due to an overlapping condition. So monitoring sarcopenia. So just to give a rapid overview of what is aging, because we see aging in our inpatient facility in everyday clinical practice. This is a quadriceps affected by both aging and sarcopenia, because there are two conditions that, I repeat, they overlap. The first definition was by Rosenberg in 1989, but now the definition is still difficult to clarify. Muscle aging presents ultrastructural features such as reduction in cell number. I don't want to go deeper in this aspect because are really complicated also for us. But what I want to focus on is the clinical feature, the clinical outcomes of muscle aging and sarcopenia, because we see everyday mobility disability, physical frailty, falls and fractures, mortality, and worse quality of life. So is what I want to focus on, because with Fondazione Cavolizzoli per la Scienza Motoria, they are really concentrated on this aspect, as Professor Maietta said before, Giovanni Paruto. So yes, we have to know that after the age of 30 years, there is a decrease in the rate of muscle mass of 38% per decade. And after 50 years old, approximately 1-2% per year of muscle mass is lost. So also along with decline in strength of 1.5% annually. So this aspect associated to ongoing sarcopenia, it's really could lead to devastating consequences. So the current definition of sarcopenia is not only muscle loss, but also losing of muscle quality, muscle strength. Frankly speaking, yes, an impairment that's very difficult to diagnose. So here we can look the role of age-related mitochondrial dysfunction in sarcopenia, just to demonstrate to you that it's not an easy task to diagnose, but it's more easy. Let's check the patient. Here on the right side, you see two different kinds of patients. One on the left side is a young, healthy guy, and we have the opportunity to check the MRI that gives us the advantage of quantifying soft tissues. And on the right side, there is another patient with an altered pattern of MRI. So it's really microscopic, the difference that is otherwise very complicated. We look at all the biological functions that underground. So now the second piece of the puzzle is sarcopenia, aging, and osteoarthritis, because osteoarthritis is the most prevalent joint disease, and aging is among its main risk factor. So just to remain macroscopic, we have to look at the monitor on the right side. After we see it 45 years knee compared with 75 years knee. So it's evident that these two knees are different. Sorry for the video there, but it's the end stage of severe osteoarthritis is knee replacement. Here we know the bolts and nuts of the cartilage anatomy, just to show you if osteoarthritis significantly affects human movement, and so it's what we worry about. Cartilage is functional anatomy, and also cartilage have a biological, very complex mechanism that is expressed by pattern recognition receptors. So the ongoing progression of osteoarthritis, along with, in our case, sarcopenia, along with cancer, represent another piece of this complete network of situations. And to add another piece of this puzzle, there is osteopenia and osteoporosis. Here there is a very interesting paper that put in evidence that is a crosstalk between muscle and bones. So muscle and bones, they communicate biologically. And so another problem could be when your bones are weaker than normal are osteopenic, but be careful because the situation can turn in severe situations like osteoporosis. And osteoporosis for an orthopedic surgeon means falls, fractures, and mortality. So that's devastating. This is a fracture of the spine, and could be really severe, and could be very reduce significantly the quality of life of the patient, especially patient with cancer. So finally, another point that I want to address to you is that sarcopenia could be classified in primary or secondary form. So primary, when we don't know nothing about the cause is not found because we don't know. But secondly, when there is something that is related to advanced organ failure, so a lot of causes, and one of these causes is malignancy or endocrine disease. And we know very well that malignancy and endocrine disease are connected. There is an interplay between these two clinical entities. So we have to be careful that sarcopenia do not turn in cachexia. That cachexia means mortality rates, higher mortality rates, regardless of the disease stage. So we can have an early stage from the ecological point of view, but we have cachexia, so the patient probably has a tremendous situation death. Okay, so how can we discriminate sarcopenia from cachexia? It's very complicated, a lot of aspects, but what we know that the diagnosis is difficult. There is no unanimous consensus for diagnosis of cachexia. Here there is a paper, I like very much this paper because they are trying to find an index to select patients with sarcopenia and cachexia, but I think the way is very long, the path is very long. So what we can do now, we can just promote the events like this one, in which we can put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Sarcopenia is in the context of cancer. Sarcopenia is not determining cachexia, but sarcopenia is strictly connected with bone health, such as osteoarthritis, osteopenia, osteoporosis. And aging is a factor that conditions all these systems. In conclusion, I think that interdisciplinary teams are a winning point. So, thanks, Jean, for having invited us to share our experience, because I think this is a winning team. Innovation, and in telemedicine, we have, like Professor Paluto, had the idea of the book, and we have helped him to develop this path. So telemedicine, I think, is our future. And what we have to do is not to keep all the information for us, but disseminating knowledge, research, and innovation. So connect research initiatives like this one across Europe, I think, is a winning strategy to work together. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. And yes, there's a big applause from our end as well. So thank you, Francesco. And that's the beauty of collaboration, because most of us in the room are gynaes or gynecologists or pharmacists who in some way or other are involved only in the gynecological aspect, or else basic research related to gynecological aspect. But we have to remember that, a patient, a woman, you have to look after her whole, the physical and the social And that's why it's very important to be multidisciplinary. So, we move on to the last speaker of the day. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Vera Dimitrievska. So Vera, she is actually the science communicator in this cost section, but she has been crucial in also putting me in touch with Prof. Grigor and in having this training school in North Macedonia become real. And she has a very interesting topic, which is very close to my heart, that's related to fertility issues, particularly in women with rare gynecological cancers. So Vera, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone, also in Bologna. Today, we had a lot of presentations which were more clinical or medical oriented. Although I'm not a doctor, but mostly oriented in public health, my presentation will be focused more on fertility issues. Just to find my presentation. Yes, I know. Thanks. On fertility issues in cancer survivors, but I would like to give attention a bit more on different projects that I'm also involved in another organization. It is basically another research that we're doing with a Horizon project, but then I will link in the cancer survivors and fertility issues among the women around the world, and what are the perspectives. I'm glad that Bologna colleagues paid attention also to different angles of the cancer, and I'm glad that the lady who spoke about the palliative care and hospice, because a long time ago I was also involved in that area, and I'm glad that it reminded me a lot on the issues that we worked with some Americans 15 years ago. So I would like to speak today what will be the content, introduction about the project actually, about the methodology of the project, main results, rare Gynocare cancers in Macedonia, North Macedonia, and what will be the conclusion. Certain parts will be repeated from the presentation in Malta, but still we have some new people here. The project is called Be Better Informed About Fertility. It is a consortium of several countries around Europe, linked with Western and Eastern Europe, which are giving the voice to the young population regarding the ART, assisted reproductive technology, how young people from 18 up to 29 are informed about assisted reproductive technology. For example, in vitro method, supported by Horizon project, and trying to know what are the concerns and expectations of young people about this. 8 countries: Belgium, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, and Macedonia, Albania, Slovenia, and Kosovo. So this is the map of the project. Mostly the partners are academia based, but in North Macedonia we have like an NGO, health grouper, who was doing the field work, collecting the data, making the cultural analysis, and presenting in certain relevant journals. Why we started with this project? Because we realized that around 186 million individuals suffer from infertility through the world, with a huge impact of their quality of life and well-being. And fertility care is considered as a key element to promote reproductive health. It is considered, according to the research based, that 10% of the population in Europe will be a result of assisted reproduction technology, or ART, and about half of the population that wishes to have children will go to certain specialized centers which are providing the ART and their different methods. So we think that ART plays a significant role in the reproductive health of European society, and it becomes very, very important. Therefore, this project, through the Horizon, trying to ask 2 questions. How do young people perceive and think about ART, and how can ART clinics be better aligned their research? Because as we mentioned today on the press conference, the research shows that mainly many young girls or women are suffering from rare gynocares and then can be also infertile. So therefore, we link this project with this. Methodological aspect of the project was actually kind of integrated approach, but mainly qualitative based. We don't have numbers and quantitative statistics, but we are trying to see the perceptions, knowledge, and attitudes among the young people in these 8 countries. Data, what we collected, then we analyzed with the University of Antwerp and France from the Paris Demographic Institute. We focus on the sociocultural, legal, and gender perspectives. And the third stage of the project is actually dissemination of the results, and then to provide special guidelines for the general population, especially young people, to be familiar with the ART, and also for the doctors. So this is how the project methodology looked like. It happened last year. As I mentioned, the average age of the participants was 24. In total, we interviewed 98 young people, and also we analyzed 33 clinics of these 8 countries who providing ART services. We tried to see how in these clinics actually explanation is provided to the other side, like to the patients or the clients, let's say. Whether it's medical based or whether it's clinical based oriented, the websites, what are the services they're providing, the gender aspects, and the most popular now, LGBT aspects, etc. So 3 themes actually appeared from this project: parenthood and infertility, young people perception on ART, and information in publication of ART. So from the data that we generated, I'm now broadening up certain main aspects of the data, but we have a really rich data, but in a matter of time, I will focus on certain topics. So parenthood is described as a relation beyond biological ties, and infertility identified as a social taboo, especially in this part of the Europe, where infertility among the youngsters is considered as a taboo and not very spoken among their parents or among their peers. Most participants perceived ART positively, and we use it if it is needed, but it is very general perception, they don't have details. Participants considered information on ART as not enough, as a lack or scarce, and suggested that the government should make campaigns for the youngster to raise their awareness in order to be better informed. The interviews also reveal a representation of intensive parenthood and a particular of intensive motherhood, which would impose major sacrifices on women. This was notable in eastern part of the Europe, in these 4 countries like Kosovo, Albania, Macedonia, and Slovenia. Concerning the clinics, the websites provided information on infertility. There are more technical description on the ART techniques, even with medical and some clinical wording, although it may be difficult for the general population to understand. And data that was offered on the success rate, how ART is successful in conceiving a child, was very unclear and heterogeneous among the participants, and they were not familiar about the success rate of ART. So this was a project, and as I mentioned before, that many young women now are suffering from the rare gynocancer, and they are becoming infertile and difficult to conceive. That's why we try to retrieve some data from our, let's say, health statistical offices or health statistical basis. So data what we have provided is from 2019. This was actually data that we gathered also for the seminar in Malta. So you can see that for epithelial tumors of corpus uteri or of cervix uteri, the numbers So in total, so far by 2019, this is very raw data. It's not very much disaggregated. It's 185. So it should be considered quite seriously. Going to that fertility issues among young females with rare cancer have to have option if they're willing to have a child or to be a parent or to develop parenthood, should be informed about the different services or options for that. So I won't talk, because I'm not a doctor, I won't talk a lot about fertility preservation techniques. So most of all you're familiar about that because you're clinician and medical doctors. The clinical options or for the ART also are there, like ART, like in vitro or some other with inseminations. But what are the non-clinical options that the literature and the experience shows? That many women who have suffered to get child or not able to get child can using donor surrogacy with using different ART techniques. And as a second is considered the adoption when both biological parents are not able to conceive. So in summary, the reproductive health can be considered for the female very important for the well-being of the woman or also for the other side. Patients and their close family should be well informed about the availability of fertility options, and also those agencies who are providing adoption services should be also considering those women who are having problem to conceive and to be aware of that, and maybe some training for them is also necessary. So in general, it's very, I was talking about more, presentation was a bit light and it is the end of the day and try to speak something completely different before to go to the next social program. So thank you a lot.
Okay.
Do you have any announcements for tonight?
So just think.
Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Dr. Dimitrievska. So as you can see, very multidisciplinary, and we talked about orthopedics, about sarcopenia, about fertility, and of course, this comes from having multidisciplinarity and international collaboration. So Francesco, maybe you want to add some concluding remarks?
Yes, just a few words to repeat my acknowledgements and to say that we have put on the same table a lot of points of view, a lot of experiences, a lot of data, and then we have merged all this experience, and I think we did really a good international collaboration. So I really like to thank you, not only you, but also all the friends there are and colleagues that are connected online here. So thank you from Bologna. We are here with all the group, with Professor Bottari, with Professor Caruto, Professor Maietta, with Professor Silvia Barani, and yes, so a lot of greetings from Bologna. Thank you.
Grazie Francesco, grazie a tutti. So thank you very much. It's been an honor for us in order to be able to collaborate to do this satellite symposium and also to be part of this book launch, which as I understand it's not the first and it won't be the last. And same here, I hope that this type of collaboration will not just be the first, and definitely not just it is the first, but it won't be the last. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Tofosky, again for hosting us, and buon proseguimento di sera. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Arrivederci. Okay, so end of day 2, and maybe some announcement on the social program. So those of you on Zoom, so thank you for staying with us, and of course we'll be meeting tomorrow at 9. But some